This is Luke of We Are Change.org, and I'm here with Kristen Meghan, who's actually a U.S. military whistleblower. She has an amazing, fascinating story that we will share with you here today. Now, Kristen, can you tell us what branch of the military you were in and what you uncovered?
Sure. I was in the Air Force on active duty for 9 years, and I worked in bioenvironmental engineering.
And now, I know the issue came up with chemtrails. I know that's an extremely controversial issue. A lot of people are extremely divided on this issue, but you actually saw things from your experiences that kind of give it a little bit more validity than I actually saw ever before. Can you go into the details of exactly what you saw?
Yeah, basically, to summarize it, part of my job was to know everything that was going on in the military and what type of impact that might have on human health, and then the environmental aspects and impacts. What chemicals are we using? How are we disposing of it? Kind of cradle to grave. So we were the internal compliance people for following OSHA and EPA standards. One part of that process was to approve chemicals, hazardous materials. You know, what are you using? Why do you need it? Where's it being used? And tracking that disposal. After it being brought to my attention about chemtrails or geoengineering, I used to think it was crazy. It actually was disrespectful to my line of work, because here we are trying to prevent environmental aspects and impacts and not have anybody get sick from our operations. But in an attempt to debunk, it changed my life. I started noticing things. I started noticing large quantities on the system where I would approve chemicals that did not have a manufacturer name, wasn't tied to a building, and that was normal protocol. When I started asking questions, I slowly became demonized. A couple years passed after that. When I asked again and people realized I was kind of being more vocal about it on social media, I was starting to be thrown into a mental institution and have my daughter taken away. Wow. That changed my life. I no longer view the military the same way, and I feel like after 9 years of trying to uphold an oath, I'm able to do that now.
And so you uncovered a lot of these hidden chemicals. Where's the connection with the chemtrails?
Well, the connection is, at first, when I saw these large quantities of aluminum, barium, strontium oxides and sulfates, I thought, well, this could be for an industrialized process, for something called shot peening or, bead blasting, things that you see in kind of the automotive industry. Except those were already accounted for. I already knew how much was used for those processes. It was a little type of different constituent. And the first thing I did, part of my job was to sample air, soil, and water. So that's what I did. I air sampled the soil, the air, and the water. And due to my profession, I know at which levels or limits of detection you need to check that at. And the amount of pollution that was in my area, and this is tests I did in Oklahoma, in Georgia, in Chicago where I'm now. But in taking those samples, I knew the background, because a lot of these things are naturally occurring and elemental, but not in this form and not in this quantity. So how did it get there? So
just to clarify, you see these huge storage containers of these chemicals. Then you do the test on the air and soil, and you see these same chemicals in the air and soil now. And that's pretty much been the main evidence I've seen people who are for chemtrails use, is saying, look at the soil, look at the water, look at all the chemicals in there. And now you're finally the person who's like, wait, I worked in the military, I saw a bunch of these chemicals there. That's crazy. It is crazy. I used to think it was crazy, and everyone asks, why are there no pictures? Yeah. Well, I'd like to see you try to take a picture inside of a restricted air hangar, because you'll have an M16 in your back. Yeah. And the hardest part for people to realize is, where are the pilots? Like, there's people who have come forward, but these people are scared. You look at what's happened to whistleblowers, look at Snowden, look at Manning. People are scared. And I think because this topic is already labeled a conspiracy theory, I don't think the government necessarily views me as a threat yet. And I mean, I know it's not the most safe thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. It's laughed at. It's made obscure. But just to bring the point home, the question I have is, why are they even chemtrailing? Why is the military and government chemtrailing us? I don't know. What's your understanding of it? Well, I don't have anything that can solidify, but I do have my opinions, and that is the history of weather weaponry. I mean, you can take away people's monetary system, you can take away people's rights, but you take their food and you disable their ecosystem, that's the #1 way to handicap people. And they've done it since the 40s, it's not new. Also seeing how it started out to be a government program,
and then noticing that it is a way for private corporations to profit off this, whether it's controlling agriculture, you know, profiting. There's certain events, you know, you lose money on if it rains, or so knowing that you can kind of predict and control the weather, there's money there. I've also, you know, heard that it could be tied to Agenda 21, but for me, it's not about why. It's just stopping it. It needs to be stopped.
Yeah, and it's called the crazy-ass conspiracy theory. The Chinese are doing it now, openly. They did it for the Olympics.
I mean, they've sprayed people. I'm sure you've heard the St. Louis story. They did biological testing. So if the government is capable of doing that, why is it so hard for people to believe? And I don't know if you've heard about David Keith, but he's actually a geoengineer, Canadian. He works at Harvard. He just wrote a new book on climate engineering, and inadvertently he's brought more awareness to this, because I feel they're getting ready to admit it, and they're trying to sell it to us. You know, it's kind of like they sell vaccines to us, they sell fluoride to us. You know, fluoride is a mining waste product. Well, how can we make that good? You know, put it in your water. So I think that they're trying to now kind of admit it and act like they're going to start doing it, and they've already been doing it.
So where's the fight taking you? What's next?
Well, my biggest issue that I have been tackling is to wake up other people in my profession. I worked for the federal government for 12 years, and it is my line of work. We are the ones that should be going out there calling people out. What is this? I mean, you can't work in my field, which is industrial hygiene. I'm an industrial hygienist and an environmental specialist. So how can you overlook this? You cannot deny the evidence. Just do your own testing. It's even gone so far to where labs stopped running these samples because I think there's pressure on them. So there's only a few labs actually now that we use, but it's just getting other people who have, you know, the average person, it's great, you know, get excited at your local level, but it's the people that are supposed to be enforcing this on a legal aspect that I've been trying to wake up.
Where can people find out more about you?
Well, follow me on Twitter because my website is, it got hacked. So I'm relaunching it, but just follow me at Kristen Meghan, KRISTENMEGHAN. Pardon me. But I suggest that you go to geo-engineeringwatch.org, pardon me, chemtrails, because that is the most reputable site. There's a lot of disinformation sites, so that's the best way to get information. And just follow me on Twitter is probably your #1 way to reach me.
You're amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.